Support for this episode comes from Modern Football Technology. Modern Football Technology provides real-time opponent tendencies and self-scout while eliminating manual data entry into Huddle, DV Sport, and Exos. If you're tired of tools that are time-consuming to learn and perform inconsistently at best, then we recommend Modern Football for a fresh perspective. Schedule a demo today at teammofo.com to see a battle-tested tool that's proven to perform and deliver value. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code CC10 to receive 10% off your first year. And listen to our recent episode featuring Folsom High School defensive coordinator Jordan Ersick to learn more about how the 2023 California State Champion uses modern football to dominate their opponents.
I'm out on the what, and I am fully invested in the how right now. Right, that's where I want to be. I want to be with the how questions. How do you teach it? How do you coach it? How do you rep it? How do you practice it? The problems that came up, how did you fix them? How did you anticipate them? How did you not anticipate them?
In this episode, we share a clinic segment from Dan Carrel, co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Coastal Carolina. Coach Carrel delves into the essential elements of teaching run defense, such as using consistent language and helping players understand formations and distributions. He shares his insight gained from experience in how to build run fits from back to front and strategize defensive calls focusing on alignment, leverage, numbers, and aggression. He explains how to make the most of your personnel and set up play calls to defend against runs while gaining an advantage in coverage. Coach Carrel did an entire series with us last season in which he explored a number of defenses across college football, as well as sharing weekly tips on how to stop the option. We'll link the series in the show notes, as well as this entire talk, which is now available on CoachTube. What you see on tape is a direct reflection of what you teach and how you teach. Video is important, but if you don't teach well, you're not going to like what you see on your video. First Down Playbook has been helping coaches teach better for 13 years. It allows you to present installs, playbooks, and practice cards in half the time with NFL quality. Coaching tools like video pairing, a player app, practice schedules, and wristband sheets have made First Down Playbook a program management system with everything in one place. If you're in a position of leadership with your football program, receive a free 1-week look at First Down Playbook. Call them at 512-814-6158 or visit them on their website or social media. Mention Coach and Coordinator Podcast or use the coupon code COACH24 to receive a $100 discount off the normal $700 First Down Playbook team membership price. Links and the phone number are in the show notes.
Really excited to get a chance to do this. Excited for an opportunity to work with John doing this. Really appreciate what John does through this foundation. You know, I think a lot of us would tell our players, teach our guys, whether you call it adversity, whether you call it circumstances, you know, however you see it, you just hope that when those things show up that, you know, they realize that it's their response that matters and it's not, you know, the adversity or the circumstance in front of them. And I think John embodies that. And I just am appreciative of him giving me an opportunity, a small opportunity to give back to this foundation. Just got to Coastal Carolina briefly. I'm not going to do a whole bio, but just got to Coastal Carolina. I've been here about 2.5 months. And obviously we're a new staff and Coach Tim Beck is the head coach. And I just shout out to him for being the most gracious and one of the better people in this business and somebody I'm excited to work for. It's going to be obviously the last staff did an incredible job here and we're looking to just keep that thing going and move it forward the best we can, but excited to have this opportunity to be here. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit of building a run fit system, how I've done that in the past, as the coordinator in the past, as somebody who's building that out, and just what are the things that I've looked for in order to get that done. So, you know, I talk about building systems. Okay, I think about systems in my head. It's systems over plays, systems over calls, systems over blitzes. How do we build out a system? And I'll kind of go through what I mean by that. I spent a lot of time watching clinics and, like we all do, obviously most of us are pretty obsessed with this stuff, and we're watching clinics and we're watching different videos and, watching other people's game tape, trying to figure out what they do. And the one prevailing thing that always comes up to me, and this is a little bit of a soapbox issue for me, so I don't want to take a lot of time, but is so many people are interested in what I would call the what. Okay. And I think those questions, and you have those conversations with your friends, and you call on a bye week, you start talking to your friends maybe, or right when the season's over or right before the season starts. It's always the what conversations, and you know what they are, right? What you doing on third down? What coverages are you using to stop the RPOs? What is your red zone plan? Where I'm out on the what, and I am fully invested in the how right now, right? That's where I want to be. I want to be with the how questions. How do you teach it? How do you coach it? How do you rep it? How do you practice it? The problems that came up, how did you fix them? How did you anticipate them? How did you not anticipate them? Right? So when all those things happen, I think for the what, what's the new blitz? What's the new creeper? What's the new sim pressure? If you distinguish those things, like what the what's, many of you guys watching this thing you can draw the what's on the board all day. You can draw them with your left hand. That's not the hard part. The hard part is the how. And I try to think about that every time we do something, we install something, we build something out. It is the system and how we're going to be able to do this. Okay. Because I think those are the hard questions, and sometimes the ones that we don't ask ourselves enough. And I'm as guilty as anybody doing that. So this will be a run fit system that I've built, like I said, more as when I was the coordinator. I spent last year in the USFL as a coordinator, and a lot of the tape you'll see is from that. So it's something that, and we'll talk about systems in themselves as we go. But the important part to get out of this, in my opinion, is not what I did, but how we came to the conclusion of what the run fit system should be, and the things that we thought about, the things that we looked at, the things that we considered when we were sitting there saying, all right, this is how we need to teach these run fits, and these are the things that we need to look at. So building a run fit system. First thing, is it teachable? Okay. And to me, that's relative to my group, relative to the players I had. I've had a very strong variety of players over the years. I coached one group of freshmen and sophomores almost exclusively, and we had to play a pretty tough schedule. And just to get them on the field and going in the right direction was a chore and a task. But obviously those things make you such a better coach, and it gives you such a different perspective on teaching. Right. And then I'm fortunate enough to have an opportunity to coach older players, right? In the USFL, 26, 27, 28-year-old guys that know a lot of football. Right. So I think that when you're building systems out for your group, can I teach this to my guys? That's the biggest question you have to ask yourself when you say, is it teachable? Is it adaptable? And things are going to change. Change is the most constant thing that we have in our game. Am I prepared for the things I know will change? That's the biggest thing. There's things that have changed every single year, game to game, week to week. Are you building a system with that in mind? One of those things would be just generically, if we're playing cover 4, we're in quarters, and we've practiced it for a whole training camp and 2 weeks of using the nickel in the run fit, or the overhang Sam nickel, whoever that is, right? Using him in the run fit. He's primary run fitter. Now, all of a sudden, some slot receivers wearing us out, and we're going to go ahead and move him outside of 2, play him in like a quarter flat technique, and basically, by all intents and purposes, you're getting like a bracket on the slot. Well, now the run fit's different over there, right? We don't have a support player on that side. So did we build it knowing that was going to happen, because it's inevitable when you're a quarters team? It's inevitable. And do we have a way to easily get that communicated to the inside linebackers, to the D-line, whoever, however that fits with the rest of the guys? And then is the language consistent? Language is important. Language is extremely important. And to me, consistent language ties into how fast we can get something taught. When I say how fast we can get it taught, just having a working knowledge of it while we are installing it. And then once we can start to get good reps at it, then it's only a matter of time before we're actually good at it. So it's how fast can we start to get reps at it where everybody kind of understands it, and then it'll get good, right? It'll eventually get good if we can do that. But sometimes it takes us so long to even start to get quality reps. And The longer that takes, you're just delaying how long it's going to take to get good at it. And I think the biggest factor in that is starting with consistent language.
As coaches, we know that some of the biggest hurdles to our team's success can come from off the field. Your team needs support to tackle the endless list of expenses, uniforms, training equipment, travel, and more. But raising that money can feel like a full-time job. Thankfully, there's Vertical Raise. Vertical Raise is the premier online fundraising platform using innovative technology to create the easiest and most efficient system available. Raise more money in less time with a local fundraising coach who works with your team every step of the way to customize the ideal fundraiser. With options for online donations, digital discount cards, premium product sales, and even spirit shops, Vertical Raise has top-of-the-line solutions for every fundraising style. To find out more, visit verticalraise.com and we'll get you connected with an exclusive offer on your first fundraiser.
Teaching run defense, formations and distribution. Players must understand formations and distribution, how they affect the schemes that they're going to see. And I would say that distribution is a bigger part of that than formation. Offenses change formations a lot. They motion, they shift, they trade. But when you look at distributions, you look at 4x1, you look at 3x2, you look at 3 away from passing strength, whatever you look at, whatever the things are that you see in your league and in your time, who you play against, whatever that is, that those distributions stay similar. Right? The same plays, the same things that you see, they just stay very similar throughout a breakdown, the course of a season, the course of a career of a coach. If they're a 4x1 run RPO team, and that's probably what they're going to be, and then they're going to find creative ways to get to it. So understanding those distributions and teaching the players to understand them. I think it's really important to define flows. Again, it comes back to what you're comfortable with, what you think you're comfortable teaching, what you think you're comfortable with the players understanding. I've seen people teach 2 different flows, direct and fast. I've seen them add in different types of caveats to that, and you end up with 4 or 5 different flows. However you teach it and coach it, it's important. But everybody off the ball defender needs to understand what the backfield actions are and what the run flows are. Okay, you might call them backfield action, whatever. But every off the ball defender needs to understand those, because they're going to come into play, and it's going to be the language. It's going to, again, make you adjust in game. When we get this type of flow, we need to do this. Or if we haven't been coaching that the whole year, if we haven't been coaching the safeties, coaching maybe it's a cloud corner that you count in the run fit. If we haven't been coaching those guys on those things all year, it's going to be hard to make the adjustments we need to stop a play that might be happening in the game, right? So it's important to define the flows and make sure everybody understands that off the ball. Okay, building run fits. This is not an indictment on the importance of any position, but you build your run fits from back to front. You build your run fits from back to front. And the 2 main questions are, how many secondary support players are going to be in this fit? How many safeties, nickels, corners are going to be in this run fit? And then where are they coming from? Okay, those are going to be the 2 biggest questions that you have to answer when you're building out a run fit system. Secondary support players, how many? Where do they come from? Fronts adjust to the coverage. Okay, does not mean D-line play is less important to stopping a run than safety play. Quite the opposite. Okay, quite the opposite. However, people with the most space and distance are going to be the off the ball guys, and we got to put them in advantageous situations. I mean, if I'm a D lineman, generally speaking, I'm playing 3 technique on the right guard, play 3 technique on the left guard. Doesn't matter that much to me. What it can matter to the secondary support players. Go back to the example that we just had. If you're in cover 4 and you're counting the nickel as a primary run fit player with the back away, we'll say, and it's kind of going to tie into what we talk about here in a few minutes, but you're counting the nickel as a primary run fit player. Well, he's the B gap defender if you set the 3 technique away from him, but if you set it to him, he's got to go clear to the A gap. So he's got to play apex to A gap. Maybe that can work for you. Maybe your 3 technique's really good. He's going to close it off anyway. There's reasons to do it, but for the most part, it's most advantageous to say, hey, we're going to set the bubble to our support player. A lot of times that's what you're going to do, right? And if you're playing some version of cloud out there and you're not counting him and you're counting the other safety, now we're going to put the bubble to him. Okay, whatever the case may be on that. So that's the fronts adjusting to the coverage and putting the secondary support players in the most advantageous situations they can be in. Now, other ways to adjust the front of the coverage is you have your run stunts, right? You have the ways to push the gap out. There's a gap over there. It's got to be played by a support player. How do we get it out as wide as we can? Do we cross out blocks, right? I've done some of that where you have a whole front build around, you get base, and they're going to cross, right? It's going to turn into, like pirate stunts or whatever on the base outs, on the run blocks. You got your run text games, you got your nose and tackle, changing the bubble post snap. You have all that. And those are all run stunts that, you can implement, but we're going to use the front to adjust the coverage, however we do it, whether it's just by setting the 3 technique in an advantageous place to do that based on the coverage structure, or if we're going to run a stunt to push the gap out wider, right, to get it out to a nickel or to a safety. But it's very important to understand, we build the run fronts, back to front, and we adjust the fronts to the coverage. Have to understand that. This slide and then this school of thought comes back a little bit to what you hear, from a traditional option sense, where people will talk about numbers and angles and grass. That's how you run the football. Well, I believe it's very similar when you stop the run. Okay, so the ways to stop the run, the first way we can do it is with numbers. We can plus the box, and that'll, again, that's a term that's going to make a lot more sense here in a minute or two, but we can plus the box. We can always we can put a support player on each side, and we can always be +1. Or if they're running the quarterback, we're evened out versus Q run, but we're always +1 for the amount of gaps they have in the box. So we can plus the box, win with numbers, support player on each side. What you have to think about as you're talking through these things in your head and you're deciding, how you're going to fit this or what coverage structure you want to be in for certain plays, that type of thing. Every time you take one from the back and put it in the front, you've made the back more vulnerable, right? From a pass perspective, from an RPO, whatever, right? But you've created some vulnerability in the back end every time you do that. And if you're really talented in the back end and you want to plus the box all the time and they can't throw the ball on it, you're usually in pretty good shape. Okay, so that's winning with numbers, right? Plus in the box. Win with aggression. To me, when we're even numbers, right, that's when we got to play harder, downhill, more aggressive. And when we go through footworks and just kind of what the expectation is, even numbers, right? Downhill backers. Think about cover 3, right? One back, one gap. You get any type of direct flow, it's go time. That's winning with aggression, right? We're evened out. We got a guy in the post. We are one guy for each gap. There's no extra player in there. To get guys off double teams, we're playing downhill, right? Typically, this is your blitz fits too. If you play fire zone, you play one high man blitzes. Some people have their trap pressures and, you have 2 high pressures and you maybe get an extra fitter in certain situations at certain sides. But, your general one high man blitzes and one high fire zone blitzes is the same thing. We are even numbered out. Okay. We gotta win by playing downhill and playing harder. And then you can win by alignment and leverage. You can stop the run with alignment and leverage. Put the guys where we need them, right? Pre-snap or post-snap, stunts movement, require formation awareness and game plan. So this is kind of how I look at it. If we were in certain situations, if we wanted to play short in the run game, we want to play with one less guy than they have, then we have to have those situations pinpointed to where we know the runs we might get. Maybe I'm talking like a 2nd and medium to a 2nd and long, like it's 2nd and 8 type of situation. You want to get into some calls where we might be down a hat in the run game. What are the runs they've ran in those situations? Well, it's been inside zone. Okay, do we have a stunt where we can steal a gap back? Yeah, this one will be pretty good for us. Okay, great. That's alignment and leverage. Okay, they've ran these 10 personnel counters. We can get both backers over there and have the end as long as we put the 3 technique away from the back or to the back or, wherever they're going. That's alignment and leverage. We might be short, but if we put our guys exactly where we need them for the plays we're expecting, then we'll live through the runs and we'll be plussed out in the coverage. Okay, so, maybe you're in 2-man or something or in brackets or something like that. That's alignment leverage. Numbers, plus the box out. Aggression, right? We're even numbers and we got to play harder, faster, downhill than them. And then using alignment and leverage would be like we're minus numbers, a number, and we have to just make sure guys are in the exact right spots for the runs we're expecting.
Here are our winning edge takeaways and ideas for implementation. 1. Become systems focused. There are a ton of great plays in all phases of the game. What I realized early in my career as an offensive coordinator, that I was becoming a schemer. I had a grab bag of plays, not a system. A system allows you to understand how everything fits together in planning an attack, sequencing play calls, and making adjustments. It allows for a methodical approach in your teaching and coaching, and overall is better for the learner. I have a free document which allows you to take an inventory of your offense or defense. It is designed for offense, but it can be adapted to help you better understand what you've put together on defense. The link will be in the show notes. 2. With the first takeaway in mind, examine how your players are taught to fit the run. Is there a language and communication system that allows for them to remain sound when there's a shift, motion, or unusual formation? The offense is using those tools to mess with the run fits and hopefully get an open gap to exploit. That's what creates an explosive play. So working these things out beforehand and systematizing how it's taught, communicated, and adjusted will allow you to remain sound in your run fits. I recommend listening to our episode from Lawrence First and Goal Clinic with Shane Durking, DC at Division III National Champion North Central, in which he shares how his system allows for players to control gap fits in order to keep themselves out of conflict. I also recommend our episode with Jason Thier, defensive coordinator at Dickinson State. This episode is called How Problems Spark Innovation, Creating a Run Fit System. Check the show notes for both of those links. 3. Test your fits on the board with your staff now before you get into fall camp. Look at the toughest schemes, problematic formations, shifts, or motions, and the best opponents you will face. Does your system hold up against all of it? Work these things out now instead of in the heat of battle on a Friday night or Saturday afternoon. Thank you for being a loyal listener of the Coach and Coordinator podcast. We want to learn more about your great ideas. In the near future, we'll be sharing ideas of our listeners on the show in a segment we're bringing back named Your Call. Whatever idea that you have that can make a difference for other coaches and their teams and ultimately our great game, please share it with us. DM me on Twitter at Coach K. Grabowski or email me at keith@coachandcoordinator.com and we'll set you up to record that with us. Be sure to go to coachandcoordinator.com for enhanced show notes and resources. You can get the slides from this part of Coach Carrel's presentation there. Also sign up for our weekly tip sheet, which includes our best ideas from the previous week and featured resources.